The void above Venaris 9 tore open like flesh under a sacred blade. Pilgrims looked skyward as auroras bled across the firmament. Sickly green, burning crimson, a bruise on reality itself. The incense smoke from the Cathedral of St. Drusus drifted upward and was devoured by the widening wound in the heavens. Choirs fell silent. The air grew dense, heavy with ozone and whispers, as though the universe itself had taken a breath and refused to exhale. From that impossible light a figure fell. He did not burn like a comet, nor crash like a meteor. He simply appeared, a man in scarlet, his body twisting mid-air before he struck the marble steps of the cathedral with a dull, wet sound. His mask was split, his weapons scattered across the sanctified courtyard, blood pooled beneath him, steaming faintly against the cold stone. The pilgrims backed away, murmuring prayers. "A demon," one whispered. "A punishment from the emperor," said another. No one moved closer. Then he twitched. Fingers flexed, bones snapped back into place, and a sound like tearing cloth echoed as his wounds closed in seconds. His head rose, the cracked mask revealing one half of a mouth twisted in a grin. "Well, that hurt more than usual," the stranger muttered. He looked around, his gaze sliding over the colossal statues of saints and martyrs, the banners embroidered with the imperial aquila, the robed clergy frozen in terror. His tone was light, mocking, yet something in his voice betrayed confusion. Okay, not New York, not even close. Definitely not heaven either. Two Adeptus Arbites stormed forward, shock mauls raised. "Identify yourself, heretic," they barked. The red-clad man stood slowly, tilting his head as though amused. "A heretic? Ooh, sounds spicy. I like it." They struck him. Electricity arced across his body, muscles spasming. Then he laughed. "You guys really don't know what pain means." His arm shot out, bones cracking as he twisted the weapon from one Arbite's hand and drove it into his chest with brutal precision. The second officer fired a shot that tore half his shoulder away. He staggered, looked down at the wound and sighed. "We're gonna regret that." The flesh sealed again, the hole closing like a mouth swallowing its own scream. When the inquisitorial convoy arrived, the plaza was silent. The stranger sat on the cathedral steps surrounded by the dead, humming a tune under his breath, blood spattered across his crimson suit. He waved lazily as the robed figures approached. "Hey, you must be management." "Good news, your boys started it." Inquisitor Halbrecht of the Ordo Malleus stood before him, his face hidden beneath a mask of polished brass. Servo skulls circled overhead, recording every detail. The Inquisitor's voice was a metallic growl. "This world is consecrated. You desecrate holy ground by your existence alone." Deadpool tilted his head. "A desecrate? Buddy, I'm not even trying yet." Bolters leveled. Halbrecht's gauntlet lifted, halting the firing line. "Restrain him." Chains blessed in sanctified oils were brought forth, heavy enough to hold a demon host. The stranger didn't resist. "The chains, huh?" "Kinky," he murmured, even as the bindings bit into his skin. Blood seeped, hissed against the metal, then was gone again, his body already repairing. Halbrecht studied him in silence. "Your physiology defies reason. You heal from mortal wounds in seconds, yet the warp stirs not in your presence." "Who are you?" the man chuckled. "A name's Wade. Wade Wilson. People used to call me Deadpool. Don't ask why." His eyes flicked toward the nearest skull drone. "A nice decor, by the way. Very gothic chic. Ever think of a color other than black?" The Inquisitor ignored the mockery. He gestured to his acolytes. "Take him to the sanctum. The Emperor's light will reveal what science cannot." As they dragged him through the cathedral's grand doors, Deadpool stared at the towering statue of the Emperor, his stone eyes weeping from centuries of incense smoke. Deadpool stood among them, bound still by an inhibitor collar that hummed faintly at his throat. The chains were gone, but the eyes watching him were weapons in themselves. The war zone stretched before him, a cathedral district drowned in flame. Once holy spires now burned as cultists poured from alleyways, their skin carved with symbols that pulsed like open wounds. They shouted prayers to a god of blood and laughter, their voices raw and exultant. Deadpool squinted through the smoke, muttering, always the cheerful types. Inquisitor Halbrecht strode ahead, a silhouette framed by the flickering light of pyres. "Purge the heretics," he commanded. His voice carried through vox amplifiers. No mercy. No mercy. No hesitation. The stormtroopers advanced in perfect synchrony, bolters roaring. The first line of cultists was torn apart in an instant, bodies erupting into crimson mist. Deadpool watched, half in awe, half in disgust. "You guys don't do warnings, huh?" Halbrecht's gaze snapped toward him. A silence. "You will move when I command it." "A sure thing, boss," Deadpool said, spinning a blade in one hand. "But if you're waiting for subtlety, you hired the wrong immortal." The Inquisitor didn't respond. Ahead, a massive shrine cracked open as if struck from within. From the dust emerged figures wrapped in flayed banners, their eyes burning with warp light. A demon host led them, its form shifting between flesh and shadow, voices overlapping in alien harmony. A blood for the red god, it intoned a sound like knives whispering through water. The cultists charged and the battlefield erupted into chaos. Bolt of fire tore through bodies, grenades screamed, the air itself burned. Deadpool lunged forward, laughing despite himself, blades flashing. A cultist's axe cleaved through his chest, splitting ribs and spine. He fell backward, coughing blood, then stood again a moment later, the wound knitting closed. "I guess it's a bad day to skip cardio." A stormtrooper beside him froze mid-reload, staring. "Emperor's mercy." "Yeah, not his style," Deadpool said, yanking the trooper down as a bolt round screamed past where his head had been. "Keep moving, soldier boy. I'm the one who's supposed to die dramatically." The battle surged around them. The Inquisitor's retinue advanced methodically, their flamers reducing entire clusters of cultists to burning silhouettes. But for every heretic that fell, two more emerged from the shadows. The demon host moved like liquid darkness, shrugging off bolter shells, its laughter echoing from the walls themselves. Halbrecht raised his relic blade, invoking the Emperor's name. A golden light seared across the demon host's form, but it did not fall. Instead it turned toward him and smiled through a dozen faces. "Your faith burns bright, little spark. Let us see if it can outshine eternity." Deadpool's instinct screamed. He saw the creature raise its hand, warp fire blooming like a miniature sun. "Hey, brass face!" he shouted, sprinting forward. "Forfismustus." The blast struck him squarely, consuming him in flame. For a heartbeat there was nothing, only smoke and the stench of vaporized flesh. Then the flames parted. He stood there again, smoking armor melted away, half his mask burned to ash. That tickled, he rasped. The demon host hesitated, its many voices faltering. Deadpool grinned and threw himself at it, swords flashing with impossible speed. Warp ichor splattered the ground as he carved through its shifting body, each strike a blur of rage and absurd resilience. The creature shrieked, flinging him backward with a psychic blast that cracked stone. He hit a wall hard enough to crater it, bones shattering, lungs collapsing, then stood again, laughing breathlessly. "Okay, that's new, you hit like my ex." The stormtroopers saw it then, the impossible man who refused to die, cutting through heretics like a red wraith. Fear began to give way to belief. They fought harder, emboldened by his defiance. Halbrecht, watching through the smoke, felt something stir beneath his discipline. The man was no demon, no machine, no sanctioned weapon. Yet he fought like an avatar of death itself, unyielding, unending. The Emperor guided his hand, the Inquisitor whispered almost involuntarily. Deadpool didn't hear him. He was too busy stabbing the demon host in the chest again and again, until its form convulsed, collapsing into a puddle of corrupted matter that hissed against the stone. When it was done, he fell to one knee, blood pooling beneath him. So, do I get a medal or just more torture time? Halbrecht approached slowly, sword still humming. "You have served your purpose this day. The Emperor's work is not yet complete." Deadpool looked up, face half shadowed, half smiling. "Yeah, I've heard that line before too." The Inquisitor studied him a long moment. "You cannot die, and yet you fight as though you wish to. Old habits," Deadpool muttered. "Avert to kill when you don't know what living's for." A silence settled, broken only by the distant screams of dying cultists. Then the vox crackled to life. Urgent, panicked. "My lord, foe." New readings from orbit, warp activity intensifying. The rift, it's growing again. Halbrecht turned toward the horizon. Above the burning spires, the wound in the sky pulsed like a living thing, spilling threads of light into the void, The air trembled, and the ground beneath them groaned as reality bent. Deadpool followed his gaze. "Yeah, that looks bad. I'm guessing it's not supposed to do that." Halbrecht's expression hardened. "It is a wound upon creation, and now it calls to whatever sent you here." Deadpool sheathed his blades, his tone quieter than before. "I guess that makes me the invitation." The Inquisitor's hand tightened around his sword hilt. "Then may the Emperor have mercy on us all." The light from the rift flared, casting the battlefield in crimson and gold. in crimson and gold. For a heartbeat, the sound of laughter rolled through the heavens, not human, not sane, but familiar enough to make Deadpool's grin fade. "Yeah," he whispered, almost to himself. "I know that laugh." The stormtroopers turned toward the noise, weapons raised. The Inquisitor barked orders, his voice drowned in the rising roar of the warp, and in that chaos, standing amid fire and ruin, the man who could not die felt something colder than fear stir in his chest. Somewhere beyond the veil, something was waiting for him, and this time, it wasn't done laughing yet. They brought him back to the fortress beneath a sky that bled light. The rift still pulsed above Venaris 9, painting everything in sickly hues of gold and red. But for now, the battle was over. The air reeked of ash and oil, the silence of the aftermath heavier than the chaos that came before. Deadpool walked among the Inquisition's soldiers, wrists bound again, the inhibitor collar humming faintly. The troopers avoided his gaze, as if the act of seeing him might offend the Emperor himself. Inside the sanctum, torchlight flickered against walls etched with prayer sigils. Deadpool was thrown to his knees before the altar, where Inquisitor Halbrecht stood waiting. His armor bore the stains of battle, his face shadowed beneath his hood. Around him, servo skulls drifted like pale ghosts. "The rift still festers," Halbrecht said, "but the cult has been broken. We have you to thank for that." Deadpool tilted his head, the tone of mockery softened, almost weary. "Thanks. That's new. You sure you're feeling all right?" The Inquisitor ignored him. "You are an anomaly, a creature of impossible resilience. I have consulted the Ordos archives. No Jean pattern matches your flesh. No psychic trace marks your soul. Yet you defy death itself." "Yeah, it's kind of my thing," Deadpool muttered. "I didn't ask for it. Don't recommend it." Halbrecht stepped closer. "Immortality without faith is heresy. But the Emperor uses all tools, even broken ones." Deadpool met his gaze, voice low. "You think your God's gonna fix me? And no," the Inquisitor said. "He will use you until you break." He raised his hand and the acolytes moved forward, fastening new bindings etched with scriptural wards. "You will serve the Inquisition. You will hunt those who would defy his will. You will fight until your body and mind are nothing but ash. If you cannot die, then you will bleed for the Imperium forever." Deadpool stared at the floor for a moment. The air around him shimmered with incense smoke and whispered prayers. "And if I say no?" Halbrecht's voice was a blade. "So then I will consign you to the null cells beneath Terra, where no sound, no light, and no death will ever touch you again." For a long time there was only silence. Then Deadpool laughed softly, the sound hollow. "You really know how to make a guy feel wanted." He rose unsteadily to his feet, the chains clinking. "Fine, I'll play your game, priest, but don't expect hymns. A faith is not required," Halbrecht replied. "Only obedience. Obedience." The chamber's doors opened, revealing a group of stormtroopers clad in black carapace armor. The sigil of the Inquisition burned into their pauldrons. "Take him to the chapel. The rites must be performed." As they led him away, Deadpool glanced over his shoulder. "Hey, Inquisitor," he said quietly, "you ever wonder what happens if your God doesn't laugh at the same jokes you do?" Halbrecht did not answer. The chapel was smaller than the cathedral, but the weight of faith hung heavier. Rows of candles burned before iron statues, their faces eroded by centuries of prayer. The troopers forced Deadpool to kneel before the altar. A priest approached, holding a brand shaped like the Aquila. The metal glowed white-hot. "This is the mark of service," the priest intoned. "May the Emperor claim even the damned." The brand pressed against Deadpool's chest. Flesh sizzled, smoke curling upward as the Aquila burned into his skin. Workers, their bodies twisted into shapes no human should bear, skin blackened by runes that pulsed faintly in the dark. Deadpool crouched beside one, running a finger along the mark. It hummed faintly under his touch, almost familiar. "You know this sign?" Halbrecht asked. "No," Deadpool said softly, "but it knows me." The Inquisitor studied him, then motioned to his men. Continue. As they moved deeper into the hive, the walls began to change. Machinery fused with bone, pipes bleeding oily ichor. The chanting grew louder, now coming not from Vox or priest, but from somewhere below, an undercurrent of madness rising from the depths. Deadpool felt it pressing at his mind, tugging at something buried deep within him. The laughter returned, clearer now, joined by whispers that coiled around his thoughts. "You don't belong here, you never did, but you will." He gritted his teeth, trying to block it out. But the voices persisted, threading through memory and pain. He saw flashes of faces, people he had once known, maybe even loved, gone in an instant. He saw his own reflection, warped and fractured, staring back from 1,000 broken mirrors. The squad halted at a junction. Lay a massive door sealed by the Mechanicus, its surface covered in warning glyphs. Halbrecht placed a hand against it, whispering a prayer. The door hissed open, revealing a cavernous chamber lit by a single red lumen. At its center stood a massive cogitator altar, wires trailing like veins into the floor. A figure was slumped against it, a man in priestly robes, his chest open to reveal circuitry fused into his flesh. His lips moved faintly. He's here. The Red One. Halbrecht stepped forward. Who speaks of him? The priest's eyes rolled back, showing only white. He laughs in the dark. He cannot die. The warp remembers. Deadpool felt the air shift. The whispers surged, no longer distant. You see, even they know your name. He stumbled back, clutching his head. Shut up, he hissed. Halbrecht turned, eyes narrowing. What did you say? A nothing, Deadpool muttered, forcing a grin. Just having a conversation with myself. Oh, habit. But the laughter wouldn't stop. It filled the chamber, unseen but everywhere, echoing through the machinery like a pulse. The walls trembled. The priest screamed, his body convulsing as the altar came alive with warp light. Halbrecht barked orders, his men firing into the machinery as it warped and twisted, birthing something monstrous. Metal and flesh merged, forming a grotesque shape that loomed over them, eyes burning like molten glass. Deadpool moved before he thought. His blades flashed, cutting through tendrils of wire and muscle. The creature's scream shook the chamber. Bolter fire tore chunks from its body, but it reformed faster than they could destroy it. He felt the laughter guiding him, whispering in rhythm with every strike. Yes, you know this. You've killed gods before. Shut up, he growled, driving both blades into the creature's chest. It howled, collapsing into a heap of steaming metal. Deadpool stood over it, panting, his arms slick with blood that wasn't his. When the noise faded, only the hum of cooling machinery remained. Halbrecht approached slowly, staring at the corpse. You heard something. During the fight. Deadpool hesitated. Yeah, maybe. Describe it. The voices, he said after a pause, are not human, not yours, like echoes. From somewhere I don't remember. Halbrecht's gaze was sharp, calculating. The warp calls to you. You resisted, yet it speaks through you. We will discover why. Deadpool wiped his blades clean on his sleeve. You'll be disappointed. I've been hearing voices my whole life. The Inquisitor studied him a moment longer, then turned away. Perhaps this time they are hearing back. As they left the chamber, Deadpool glanced once more at the shattered altar. For a moment he thought he saw movement. A flicker of red light deep within the cables, pulsing like a heartbeat. And beneath it, a whisper carried through the dust, soft and almost playful. Soon, Wade. Soon we'll laugh together again. He didn't respond. He just walked in silence, the echo of that laughter following him through the smoke, growing quieter, but never gone. The corridors of the hive bled shadows as the Inquisition's team descended deeper into the lower levels. The air grew thicker, dense with the stench of decay and burnt oil. Each step echoed with the weight of unseen things shifting beyond the walls. Deadpool followed at the rear, his movements restless, his eyes darting toward the rusted vents and fractured metal. The whispers hadn't stopped since the altar. They had grown quieter but more intimate, closer as if the warp itself was leaning in to listen. Halbrecht moved at the front, every stride precise. His sword hung loose at his side, its edge still faintly luminous from the demon encounter. The cult was a distraction, he muttered through the Vox link. Something else guides this corruption, something older. Deadpool tilted his head. Older than this place. Hard to imagine something older than this pile of rot. Halbrecht ignored the remark. The Auspex readings indicate a void below the Manufactorum, an ancient hall beneath the foundations of the city. The records call it the Miratorium of Glass. It was sealed during the Horus heresy. Deadpool frowned beneath his mask. You people keep everything, don't you? Even haunted basements. The squad reached a gate of blackened adamantium, covered in sigils that pulsed faintly, as though drawing breath. Halbrecht gestured to his acolytes. Unseal it. As they began their rites, Deadpool felt the air tighten, the pressure building in his skull. His reflection shimmered faintly on the metal gate, and for a brief moment it blinked. Though he hadn't, he stepped closer, frowning. The reflection smiled wider, the expression wrong, too wide. Don't look at it, Halbrecht ordered suddenly. His voice broke through the fog. The wards reflect what the soul hides. The unclean will see themselves devoured. Deadpool forced a laugh. He too late for that. My soul's been roadkill for a while. The gate opened with a groan that sounded almost like a scream. Cold air swept out, carrying the scent of dust and something metallic, blood long dried. The chamber beyond was vast, its ceiling vanishing into darkness. Hundreds of broken mirrors lined the walls, fractured shards glimmering faintly with unnatural light. In their reflections, the torches burned green. The Inquisitor stepped forward, voice low. This is where the priests of Seraphis once tried to commune with the Emperor's reflection, believing they could see his divine truth. Instead, they saw themselves. And the warp saw them. Deadpool followed slowly, his boots crunching over glass. Each reflection caught him at a different angle, one smirking, one scowling, one staring with empty eyes. The laughter he'd heard before now rippled faintly across the room, as if bouncing between the shards. "You feel it too," he whispered to no one. Albrecht heard him, speak. "It's like they're watching. Not just mirrors, more like windows." "Someone's on the other side and they're enjoying the show." One of the stormtroopers ahead stopped suddenly. "In movement," he barked, raising his weapon. The others followed suit, bolters aimed at the darkness beyond the nearest mirror. From within the reflection, shapes moved, impossible silhouettes that mirrored the troopers exactly. Every gesture, every breath copied in perfect synchrony. Then one of the reflections smiled. It was subtle, almost human, until the mirrored soldier stepped forward through the glass. The sound was like breaking bones. Bolter fire filled the air. The reflections shattered, only to reform again, each fragment sprouting hands and faces. The mirrored figures poured out, silent and gleaming, their skin like liquid glass. A contact! Deadpool leapt into motion, his blades flashing. He met one of the mirror things head-on, cutting through its torso. The creature broke apart, but its pieces crawled back together, reshaping into his own image. He froze. It looked exactly like him, down to the last scar. "Well, cute trick," he said, raising his sword. "But I've got better material." The reflection smiled back. "I know, I am." It lunged. He parried, their blades clashing in a spray of glass and sparks. Each movement mirrored perfectly, too perfectly. Every strike he made it anticipated. Every wound he dealt it closed as he did. It was like fighting his own memory, his own madness given shape. The voices in his mind surged. "See? This is what they see when they look at you. A thing pretending to be human. A reflection that doesn't know it's the joke." He stumbled, rage and confusion flooding through him. The mirrored Deadpool pressed forward, grinning. "You don't belong here. You never did. The warp didn't bring you. It remembered you." Deadpool's vision blurred, a rush of old pain clawing its way to the surface. He saw flashes of his world, streets bathed in neon, faces laughing, dying, forgotten. And beneath it all, that same laughter, the one that had followed him through every universe. "No," he hissed, voice cracking. "You're not me." The reflection tilted its head. "Aren't I?" He lunged again, this time not with precision but fury. He drove both blades into the creature's chest, shattering it into 1,000 shards. The sound was deafening. He fell to his knees, glass dust settling around him. Albrecht's voice cut through the haze. "Contain the breach." The surviving troopers chanted exorcisms, sealing the mirrors with flame and prayer. The reflections recoiled, vanishing one by one until only silence remained. When it was over, the floor was littered with ash and broken glass. Albrecht approached Deadpool, his tone unreadable. "You fought yourself." Deadpool looked up, eyes hollow. "Yeah, I lost. You destroyed it." That's not the same thing." He glanced toward the shattered shards, where his reflection still lingered faintly in the fragments, smiling, waving, mocking. "It wanted me to see something. Maybe it did." Albrecht studied him for a moment, then said, "The warp shows truth in lies. Whatever you saw, remember it. It may yet serve the Emperor's will." Deadpool stood slowly, the crunch of glass beneath his boots sharp as a heartbeat. "Or maybe it'll serve whoever's laughing in my head." They turned to leave the miratorium. As the gate sealed behind them, the last mirror rippled, revealing the faint image of the red-suited reflection still standing there, motionless. Then it spoke softly, its voice identical to his own. Soon, the light faded. The chamber fell silent once more, but in the echo of that silence, Deadpool could still hear it, the sound of himself laughing somewhere far away, and something else laughing with him. The flight from Seraphis was a silent one. Even the hum of the ship's engines seemed muted, as though the void itself conspired to drown out memory. Deadpool sat in the dark of the troop bay, helmet in his hands, shards of glass still embedded in his armor. Every movement sent tiny reflections crawling across the walls like ghosts. His reflection in the visor stared back, unchanged, unbroken, and yet he knew something inside him had cracked beyond repair. Halbrecht had not spoken since the Miratorium. He stood in the cockpit, motionless, watching the warp shimmer beyond the viewing port. Occasionally the light caught his features just enough to reveal the exhaustion etched into them. He looked less like an inquisitor and more like a man haunted by his own faith. Deadpool finally spoke into the silence. "You ever think about how many people you've killed?" Halbrecht turned slightly, voice cold. "The Emperor counts for me." Deadpool laughed quietly. "Yeah, I used to believe someone up there was keeping score too." Each one shattered into a cloud of glass and blood, but every piece that fell reformed into another version of him, dying, laughing, burning, healing. 1,000 deaths, they whispered, none that matter. The laughter became unbearable. He felt his body tearing apart, reforming over and over, each death shorter, sharper, meaningless. Pain had lost its edge long ago, but now it carved through his mind instead of his flesh. Then a voice cut through the storm, real, commanding. "Deadpool," he gasped, the illusion cracking. The mirrors shattered all at once, and he was back in the fortress. Halbrecht stood over him, one hand on his shoulder, the other holding a glowing sigil that burned with holy light. The Inquisitor's voice was distant but firm. "The warp sought your soul. It could not take it." Deadpool laughed weakly. "You say that like it's a blessing." Halbrecht looked at him unreadable. "No, it is a curse." Deadpool sat back, staring at his blood-slick hands. The laughter was gone, but its echo remained faint and familiar, somewhere deep inside. He felt hollow, emptied of something he hadn't realized was missing. "Then I guess I'm exactly where I belong," he murmured. Outside, the wind howled against the fortress walls, carrying with it a sound almost too soft to hear, a single distant laugh that might have been his, fading into the endless dark. The fortress on the cliff was burned by dawn. Purity fire washed its stones clean, leaving only ash where heresy had once whispered. The Inquisition left nothing behind, not the dead, not the living, not even the memory of what had occurred. But as the flames consumed the structure, Deadpool sat alone in the transport bay of the departing gunship, staring into the inferno below. He didn't remember lighting the fire, but the scent of smoke still clung to his hands. Halbrecht stood across from him, silent. The Inquisitor's face was turned toward the flames as well, though his expression betrayed no satisfaction. "The Emperor tests us," he said at last, "through corruption, through loss, through pain. Faith is measured in how we endure the silence between his words." Deadpool tilted his head. "You ever think maybe he's not silent? Maybe we just don't like what he's saying." Halbrecht's eyes shifted toward him, unreadable behind the dull glow of the lumen. "You speak like one who doubts." "I've met gods before," Deadpool replied softly. "They all start the same, big on rules, quiet on mercy. There was no response, only the low thrum of the engines. But the words lingered like a heresy unsaid. The journey to terror was long and unkind. Halbrecht had requested direct oversight from the ecclesiarchy itself. Deadpool was to stand before the priests of the Golden Throne to be examined, judged, and if necessary, erased. To the Inquisition he was both a weapon and a wound. Neither could be left unattended. When the ship finally entered orbit, the sight of the cradle world filled the viewport. Terror. The heart of the Imperium. A world of spires and scars where the sky itself seemed to bow under the weight of devotion. It was said that billions prayed there every day, and that the Emperor heard none of them. As the transport descended, Deadpool felt something shift inside him. The air grew heavy, the warp quieter. The laughter that had haunted him since Seraphis dimmed to a whisper. It wasn't gone, only suppressed, as though the planet itself smothered it. He found the silence worse. They landed at dawn. The ecclesiarchal spire loomed like a dagger of marble and gold, surrounded by banners and incense that filled the air with the scent of sanctity and smoke. Thousands of pilgrims knelt in endless rows outside the cathedral gates, faces lifted in trembling devotion. Deadpool followed Halbrecht through the crowd, their whispers following him like shadows. The Red One, the Cursed One, the man who cannot die. Inside the cathedral was vast beyond comprehension. Every wall was carved with the deeds of saints and martyrs. The air vibrated with the sound of choir and organ. At the center stood the tribunal dais, where 3 ecclesiarchs waited, their robes a cascade of crimson and gold. Halbrecht stepped forward and bowed. "By order of the Ordo Malleus, I bring before you a subject of anomaly and potential faithless nature. He has served the Emperor's will in battle, yet his existence defies his law. The central priest, ancient and almost skeletal, raised his gaze to Deadpool. A step forward, Deadpool did. The weight of their eyes was worse than any battlefield. "You are not of this galaxy," the priest said. "You come from beyond, from a place where the Emperor's light does not reach." "That's one way to put it," Deadpool said quietly. "You cannot die," another added. Another added. "Your body rejects the will of mortality, yet your soul refuses to ascend. You are trapped between damnation and salvation. Tell us, creature, what is your faith?" Deadpool hesitated. For once no quip came. "I don't know anymore." The chamber fell silent. The first priest rose slowly, his steps echoing. "Then you are lost." He drew a relic chalice from the altar, its rim lined with symbols of flame. "A drink," he commanded. "Let the Emperor's light burn away your falsehoods." Deadpool took the chalice, the liquid inside shimmering faintly. It smelled of metal and sanctity. Without hesitation he drank. Fire coursed through his veins instantly, brighter than plasma, hotter than death. He fell to his knees, choking. His blood boiled, his skin peeled away, and still he lived. The priests watched with holy detachment as his body collapsed, regenerated, burned again, and reformed. The light that should have purified only recycled the pain. He screamed, not from agony but from the realization of it, that even the Emperor's fire could not reach him. Halbrecht's voice was low, almost reverent. "He cannot be cleansed." The senior priest spoke, eyes glowing faintly. "Then he is proof that the warp mocks us. His curse is a mirror of our faith. To live without the Emperor's mercy is the truest damnation of all." Deadpool rose unsteadily, steam rising from his shoulders. "I guess that makes me your favorite heretic." The priest approached, holding a relic blade. "You misunderstand, abomination. We do not hate you. We pity you." The blade came down in a single, precise stroke. It cleaved his skull clean through. Deadpool fell lifeless. The priests murmured prayers over the corpse, their voices blending with the choir. Then, with the soft sound of tearing flesh, he gasped. The wound sealed. His heart beat again. He rose, blood dripping onto the marble floor. "I told you," he whispered. "It doesn't stick." The silence that followed was immense. Even the choir faltered. The senior priest lowered his head. "It is not for us to destroy what we do not understand. But hear me, wanderer. Your curse is your confession. You will walk this galaxy in the Emperor's shadow, forever atoning for sins that are not your own." Halbrecht stepped forward. "He will continue under my command. His service is his penance." The priests gave a single nod, their judgment complete. "Then go, Inquisitor, and may the throne forgive what it must use." As they left the cathedral, the incense burned thicker, suffocating. Deadpool paused at the threshold, looking up at the great mural of the Emperor enthroned. The golden face stared down, unblinking. "Tell me something," he said quietly. "If he really is a god, why does he need men like you to do his work?" Halbrecht did not answer. He simply walked on, the echo of their steps swallowed by the vastness of the cathedral. Deadpool lingered a moment longer. Beneath the scent of incense and devotion, he caught something faint. A laugh, soft and familiar, hidden beneath the hymn. It was his laugh echoing back from the hollow between the prayers. Red light flooded the corridors, the sound of klaxons cutting through the silence. The overseer's voice echoed through the vox. "A containment breach. Section 13. Lockdown protocols engaged." Deadpool ran toward the noise. When he reached the psycho hold, the air was alive with energy. Chains snapped like brittle glass and blue fire crackled along the floor. One of the psychers, a child barely more than 12, floated above the others. Her blindfold burned away. Her eyes glowed with the light of the warp itself. The overseer's guards opened fire. Bolter rounds tore through the air, but the girl didn't fall. The bullets froze mid-flight, hanging like stars around her. Then, with a motionless gesture, they turned, slicing through the soldiers who had fired them. Deadpool stepped forward. "Hey, kid," he said softly. "You don't want to do that." "You don't want to do that?" Her head turned toward him, and in her gaze he saw galaxies burning. "You," she whispered, her voice layered with 1,000 others. "The one who laughs in the dark. He wants you." The deck shuddered. The lights flickered, casting the room into strobing chaos. Behind her, the walls began to melt, revealing a vast expanse of colorless void. Shapes moved in it, titanic, formless things pressing against reality's edge. Deadpool's instinct screamed. He moved without thinking, diving through the field of psychic fire and grabbing the girl by the shoulders. The energy seared him, boiling away flesh, but he held on. "A kid, look at me. You're stronger than it," she screamed. The warp's pull intensified, ripping at both of them. His regeneration struggled to keep up, his vision fading to static. For a moment he saw her face, not burning, not monstrous, just human, terrified. Then the light collapsed inward, vanishing into nothing. When he woke, the hold was silent. The psychers were dead, their bodies husks. The girl was gone. The overseer stood nearby, flanked by guards, her face expressionless. "You contained it," she said. "The breach is sealed." Deadpool sat up, smoke rising from his charred armor. "I didn't contain anything. She stopped it." "She was a conduit," the overseer replied, "and now she is ash." As they all must be, he stared at the spot where the girl had stood. The laughter had returned, faint but persistent, curling like smoke in the back of his skull. "He wants you." He rose slowly. "You ever wonder what happens if one of them doesn't burn out?" The overseer turned away. "They all burn out." Deadpool's voice dropped to a whisper. "Not all of them." As he walked back to his quarters, the hum of the engine seemed to pulse with the rhythm of a heartbeat, not the ship's but his own. And deep within that pulse, beneath the noise of metal and machine, he swore he could hear it again, the laughter, louder this time, closer. Somewhere in the warp beyond the hull, something had found him, and it was waiting for him to laugh back. The ascendant grace drifted through the void, its black hull lit by the dying glow of distant stars. In the wake of the psycho breach, the ship was half dead, systems damaged, decks sealed, prayers whispered without conviction. The corridors smelled of ash and fear. Every step Deadpool took echoed against walls that seemed to remember screams. He hadn't spoken to anyone since the incident. The overseer had ordered silence. The Inquisition preferred its horrors unrecorded. But Deadpool couldn't forget the girl's voice, the way her eyes had looked into him. Not through him, but into, as if something inside her had recognized something buried deep within his own madness. "He wants you." The words had stuck, looping endlessly in his mind. Even now, standing in the observation bay, staring out at the warp's flickering currents, he could almost hear her whisper again. The stars bled into streaks of violet and red, like veins pulsing behind thin skin. He touched the glass, and for a second it felt warm, almost alive. Halbrecht's voice came through the vox, sharp and clipped. "A report." "A still here," Deadpool answered. "A still breathing, still cursed. Pick your favorite. Your presence disturbs the ship. The astropaths cannot focus. The crew hears laughter in their sleep." Deadpool's tone darkened. "Then we've got something in common," and there was a pause. "We make for the moon of Idumea, a relic world. You will accompany me," Deadpool sighed. "A sure road trip with the holy man. What could possibly go wrong?" The warp jump ended with a shudder that rattled the ship's bones. Idumea hung below, a fractured moon wrapped in clouds of red dust, its surface scarred by bombardment and centuries of forgotten wars. The ruins of cathedrals and manufactorums stretched across its plains like broken teeth. They descended into a storm of ash and lightning. Tsudi. The dropship landed in the shadow of an ancient shrine, its spire half collapsed, its stained glass blackened. The wind carried the faint scent of burned incense, though no flame had burned here in ages. Halbrecht and a handful of soldiers moved ahead, but Deadpool lingered near the threshold. He could feel it again, the hum beneath his skin, the pull of something immense and unseen. "A move," Halbrecht ordered. Deadpool followed, boots crunching over bone and debris. Inside the shrine, statues of saints lay shattered across the floor. At the altar, an object glowed faintly under layers of dust, a circular relic of gold and black iron, etched with runes that hurt to look at. Halbrecht knelt, reverent, at the chalice of the Martyr King. Lost since the age of apostasy, Deadpool tilted his head. "It looks like a fancy cup to me." The Inquisitor's glare was sharp enough to cut steel. This relic contains the memory of divine fire. Its flame once purified entire worlds. If reignited, it could burn the corruption from the Imperium itself, or burn it with the Imperium, Deadpool muttered. Halbrecht ignored him, raising his hand in prayer. "By the Emperor's grace, may his light return." The runes flared. The ground trembled. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of ozone and blood. A low hum became a roar, and the chalice erupted with light, a column of fire that reached to the heavens. Deadpool staggered back, shielding his face as the heat seared through his armor. Halbrecht stood unflinching within the inferno, his robes aflame, his eyes alight with something between faith and madness. "Do you feel it?" he shouted over the roar. "The Emperor's hand upon us." Deadpool stared. The fire wasn't consuming him. It was welcoming him. It was welcoming him. The flames coiled around his limbs like living serpents, burning away the last traces of shadow from the warp breach. He screamed, but the sound turned into laughter, wild and broken. The fire spoke without words. It showed him worlds burning, armies kneeling, gods bleeding. He saw himself countless versions across countless realities, dying, reviving, laughing, weeping, each one chained by the same curse. The warp had called him mockery, but now the Emperor's light called him something else, a weapon. When the fire dimmed, the shrine was gone, only ash remained. The soldiers were dust. Halbrecht knelt amid the ruin, his armor cracked, his eyes reflecting the dying glow. Deadpool stood before him, unburned, the relic's mark etched across his chest like a brand. Halbrecht rose slowly. You stood within holy fire and did not perish. The Emperor has chosen you. Deadpool's voice was hoarse, or he's laughing harder than ever. The Inquisitor gripped his arm, his expression fevered. Do not blaspheme. What you felt was communion. You are his instrument now. Deadpool yanked his arm free. I've been an instrument all my life. Funny thing about tools, they break. Halbrecht's tone softened, almost pitying. Perhaps that is your purpose, to break until nothing remains but faith. The words hit harder than the fire had. Deadpool turned away, staring at the horizon. The storm had cleared, revealing a sky of burning gold. A cold dread swept through the corridors as klaxons blared. The Vox crackled to life with the Overseer's panicked voice. Igilla field instability. Warp breach forming in aft sector. Deadpool was already moving. He grabbed his weapons and sprinted toward the aft decks. The air grew colder with every step, his breath fogging. The walls themselves seemed to ripple, reality thinning like stretched glass. Screams echoed from ahead, crewmen torn apart by things that weren't entirely there. When he reached the containment hall, he stopped short. The warp breach had opened in the center of the chamber, a wound in reality bleeding light and shadow. Shapes slithered within it, too large, too vague, constantly shifting. They whispered his name like a song. Wade. The sound made his spine crawl. It wasn't chaos, not the hungry, gleeful madness he'd felt before. This was colder, deeper, ancient. Halbrecht appeared beside him, relic pistol raised. Stay back. The purity seals won't hold. The Inquisitor fired into the breach, each shot a burst of light. The creatures shrieked, recoiling, but the wound didn't close. Instead, it expanded, and from its depths stepped a figure draped in tattered robes of red and gold. Its face was hidden by a mirrored mask that reflected everything but itself. Halbrecht froze. A demon. The figure tilted its head. Its voice, when it spoke, was layered with countless tones. Male, female, young, old. No demon, no god. Merely a voice you've carried too long. Deadpool stared. I've seen ugly, but you're new. The reflection in the figure's mask smiled, his own face staring back at him. You keep dying, but not once have you listened. We speak, and you laugh. We offer, and you defy. Tell me, child of fractured worlds, how long will you pretend you're not one of us? The heat beneath Deadpool's skin flared, the brand on his chest blazing like molten gold. I'm not part of whatever this is, he said through clenched teeth. The reflection leaned closer. But you are. You carry both flames, the Emperor's and ours. You are the bridge. Through you both will meet. Halbrecht shouted something, words lost beneath the rising roar of the warp, but Deadpool barely heard him. The voices inside his head crescendoed into a chorus, and for a heartbeat he saw everything. The warp, the materium, the screaming faces of gods and men, every death he had ever lived through, looping endlessly. The laughter that had haunted him wasn't chaos at all, it was memory. Then the light exploded. When the noise died, the chamber was gone. Deadpool stood amid twisted metal and ash. The breach had closed, leaving nothing but silence. Halbrecht lay unconscious beside him, armor cracked, the sigils on his chestplate melted. Deadpool's hands were glowing faintly. The veins beneath his skin shimmered with both gold and red light intertwining. He looked down at the mark on his chest. It was no longer burning. It pulsed like a heart. From the stillness came a final whisper softer than breath. You're learning, Wade. Keep listening. He exhaled slowly, his laughter barely a whisper. If this is divine enlightenment, I want a refund. He turned toward the wrecked corridor, carrying Halbrecht's unconscious body over his shoulder. The ship was still drifting, but it was alive. For now. In the depths of the warp, something vast stirred and smiled. Its laughter rippled across the void, echoing faintly inside the man who could not die. And for the first time, Deadpool didn't laugh back. The Ascendant Grace limped through the void, half its systems crippled by the breach that should never have been survived. The crew moved like wraiths, whispering prayers that faltered as soon as they reached their lips. No one looked Deadpool in the eye anymore. To them, he was no longer a man. He was a relic of something too terrible to name. Halbrecht awoke 2 days later in the infirmary, his body half wrapped in bandages, his armor reduced to shards of gold and soot. The medici bowed low, murmuring litanies of gratitude that he still lived. But the Inquisitor's first words were not of thanks. "Where is he?" "Abilodex, my lord," the overseer replied. "He has not slept. The lights in his quarters flicker when he speaks." Halbrecht dismissed her with a gesture and rose. Every movement hurt, but pain had never slowed him. He made his way through the wounded ship until he found Deadpool seated in the observation hall, his reflection cast across the cracked glass of the viewport. The void outside rippled faintly, like the surface of a disturbed ocean. Halbrecht approached slowly. "You closed the breach." Deadpool didn't look up. "I didn't close it. It just stopped, like it got bored." "The warp doesn't tire," the Inquisitor said. "Maybe it does when it realizes it's arguing with itself." Silence fell between them. The hum of failing engines filled the air, steady but fragile. The Inquisitor studied the man before him, the strange glow beneath his skin, the faint shimmer that followed his every movement. "You've changed." Deadpool finally turned, his voice quiet, almost weary. "You think?" "There's more of it in you now," Halbrecht said. "The warp, it bends around you. It listens." Deadpool exhaled slowly. "It doesn't listen. It talks. And I can't tell if it's trying to teach me something or if it's just laughing at me." Halbrecht stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Either way, it's time we use that voice." Deadpool frowned. "Use it. You're out of your mind." The Inquisitor's eyes gleamed faintly under the flickering light. "I've seen the edge of damnation and returned. You've walked through the Emperor's fire and lived. Between us, there may be a path neither side expects." Deadpool stood. "A path to what?" "To silence," Halbrecht said. "To ending the whispers once and for all." He revealed a data slate, the screen displaying coordinates that burned faintly red. "There's a world on the rim of the Eye of Terror. Virus. The Adeptus Mechanicus abandoned it after their reliquary vaults collapsed into the warp, but there's rumor of a relic buried beneath the ruins, a null engine built during the dark age of technology. It was designed to still the warp itself. Deadpool's voice dropped to a whisper. "You want me to walk into the Eye of Terror to turn off the galaxy's nightmare?" Halbrecht didn't blink. "You are the only one who can. The warp cannot devour what it already owns." Deadpool laughed softly, the sound edged with disbelief. "You're using me as bait." "Not bait," Halbrecht corrected. "A bridge." Deadpool's jaw tightened. "A bridge between what? Madness and martyrdom?" The Inquisitor's tone was iron. Between survival and extinction." For a long time neither spoke. The ship drifted silently, swallowed by the endless dark. Then Deadpool broke the stillness. "And if this thing works, if it really shuts the warp up for good," Halbrecht looked out the viewport, "then every soul in the Imperium will sleep without fear. And you," he hesitated, "you might finally be allowed to die." Deadpool's laughter came quietly this time, almost human. "And now that's a sales pitch. The plan was set within hours. The Ascendant Grace would make for Varys under silent warp, masking its presence. The crew worked with mechanical obedience, their eyes hollow, their prayers dry. Deadpool spent the journey in isolation, speaking less, listening more. The voices had changed. They no longer mocked, they waited. "He wants you there," they murmured. The fire and the shadow together at last. When the ship reached orbit, Varys appeared below a cracked, ashen wasteland, its skies bruised with storms. Lightning flickered across vast plains of glass, remnants of cities turned molten by ancient wars. At its heart lay a chasm so deep it swallowed the light around it. Deadpool stared down at it from the drop bay. "You sure this isn't just a big graveyard?" Halbrecht checked his weapon. "All relics are born in tombs." The descent was rough. Ash storms tore at the shuttle as it broke through the atmosphere, buffeting it like a living thing. When they landed, the ground shifted beneath their boots, the soil whispering faintly. It wasn't wind, it was breath. They moved through the ruins in silence, guided by the flickering locator rune. Each step brought a deeper sense of wrongness, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Deadpool could feel the pull again, the same hum that had lived in him since Idumea, stronger now, insistent. They reached the chasm's edge. Below, the relic's light pulsed faintly, buried in shadow. The hum was deafening. Halbrecht raised his vox, but the signal dissolved into static. "It's here." Deadpool stared into the abyss. "So this is it, the Emperor's grand plan. Throw the crazy guy into hell and hope it shuts up." Halbrecht's tone was solemn. A faith demands sacrifice. "A funny," Deadpool said, stepping closer to the edge. "It always demands someone else's." He jumped before Halbrecht could stop him. The fall seemed endless. Light and shadow twisted around him, reality peeling away in layers. The deeper he fell, the louder the laughter became. Not the cruel kind anymore, but something vast, warm and knowing. "Welcome home," it said. He didn't scream. He just laughed with it, the sound echoing into the dark until it became indistinguishable from the warp itself. Above, Halbrecht watched the chasm close, its glow dimming until only silence remained. He made the sign of the Aquila over his chest. "For the Emperor," he whispered, but even as he spoke, a faint tremor ran through the earth, like a heartbeat answering from below. In the depths of the abyss, the bridge had begun to awaken. There was no up or down in the abyss, only colorless motion, like drowning in liquid shadow. Deadpool fell for what felt like eternity. Then, abruptly, there was ground. The impact should have killed him, but his body merely broke and reknit itself in the same heartbeat. He lay still for a long while, listening to the silence. It wasn't empty, it was waiting. When he finally stood, he found himself in a vast expanse of glassy stone, reflecting a sky that wasn't there. Lightning rippled beneath the surface, illuminating faces trapped within the crystal, screaming, laughing, silent. The air tasted of metal and blood. He took a step and the ground rippled outward like water. Every reflection showed him differently. One laughing, one weeping, one standing tall in crimson armor, another kneeling before a throne of light. They moved without him like echoes rehearsing a play he hadn't agreed to perform in. "All right," he muttered, voice carrying through the still air. "I get it. Symbolism. Very dramatic." The laughter came again, deep and omnipresent, echoing across the void. But this time it wasn't mocking, it was familiar, almost affectionate. "You've worn the mask so long you forgot which face was beneath it." He turned, searching the horizon. "I've had worse therapy sessions. Who's running this one? Chaos? The Emperor? Or is this just me talking to myself again?" "All of the above," the voice replied. It was layered. His voice, Halbrecht's, the girls from the Black Ship, even the Emperor's sermons he'd once heard whispered in cathedral halls. "You're the bridge, remember?" Between the joke and the prayer, the ground cracked beneath his feet. Light spilled from the fissures, gold and crimson entwined like veins pulsing with life. The hum grew louder, almost unbearable. He clutched his head, memories crashing over him. Every death, every resurrection, every scream that never stuck. "You were never meant to die," the voice said. "You were meant to keep living until you understood." He laughed weakly. Understood what? That pain's the punchline? That faith and madness are the same thing when you strip away the hope? The light swelled and the abyss unfolded before him. An endless battlefield. The ground was littered with corpses in every kind of armor imaginable. Space Marines, guardsmen, sisters, demons, angels. The sky burned with the reflection of a dying sun. He recognized some of their faces. He'd fought beside some, killed others. In the center of the field stood a figure in blackened plate, half of its helm missing, the flesh beneath scarred and glowing faintly red. In one hand it held a sword wreathed in fire, in the other a broken mask, his mask. The figure turned slowly, and Deadpool felt his chest tighten. It was him, older, burned, eyes hollow, but alive with purpose. "You're late," the other him said, voice distorted. "We've been waiting." Deadpool tried to speak, but the words caught. The older version smiled without warmth. "You don't get it yet, do you? The joke's not on you. You are the joke." The battlefield trembled as laughter rolled across it, louder now, spreading from every corpse, every reflection in the shattered air. Deadpool's doubles stood up from where they'd fallen, forming ranks, hundreds of versions of him, some armored, some bare, all identical yet fractured. The older Deadpool raised the burning sword. The warp, the Emperor, the gods, they all need a story to believe in. You're the ending. The fool that walks through every lie and laughs anyway, the clown of the end times. The words echoed through him, and for the first time he understood the weight of them. All those deaths, all that pain, it wasn't punishment, it was purpose. The galaxy needed a witness who couldn't die, a jester to mock the gods even as they devoured everything. He stepped forward slowly. "And what happens if the clown stops laughing?" The older version grinned. "Then the curtain falls, flames erupted around them, washing the world in light." The other Deadpools charged, their laughter turning into screams. He fought without thinking, blades flashing, blood spraying, echoes dying with every cut. But they kept coming. Every wound he dealt bled into himself, each reflection feeding back the pain he gave. "Enough!" he roared. The laughter ceased. The world froze. The older Deadpool stood before him again, impaled on his sword. They were face to face now, mirror to mirror. "You can't kill me," the other said, voice soft. "You can only take my place." The light behind him dimmed. The battlefield began to fade, leaving only the hum of the void and the pulse of the relic buried deep in his chest. He felt it awakening, resonating with the abyss around him. "I don't want this," he whispered. "No one ever does," the reflection said. "But someone has to laugh at the end or the story never stops." The sword slipped from his grasp, turning to ash before it hit the ground. The older him smiled one last time, almost kindly. "Don't worry, he'll make it funny." Then he dissolved into light and the abyss swallowed everything. Fritter swallowed everything. Deadpool fell to his knees, the air around him trembling. The laughter was gone. The silence that replaced it was worse. It was complete. The pulse in his chest steadied, and he realized what had happened. The relic, the chalice's fire, the warp, it had fused into him entirely. The null engine Halbrecht sought wasn't a machine, it was him. Above, through the storm clouds of the warp, he could feel the galaxy. Millions of voices, billions of prayers, countless screams, all threading through him like nerves. For the first time in uncountable lifetimes, he didn't feel divided. He was everything and nothing, human and God, sinner and saint. Then far above, the faintest sound reached him. Thunder or perhaps applause. The warp light faded, replaced by the faint glow of dawn. He stood alone on the silent battlefield, the air still heavy with the ghosts of laughter. "Oh well," he murmured to the void, his voice steady but hollow. "Guess I finally got the joke." No one answered. He looked up one last time toward the burning sky and smiled, a small broken smile that carried no mirth. Then he walked forward into the light, his shadow stretching impossibly long behind him until both vanished into the horizon. Somewhere in the depths of the warp, where gods and monsters whispered in dreams, a new sound began to echo, a single quiet laugh that never ended. When he woke again, the war was over, or maybe it had simply forgotten him. The sky above was pale and quiet, neither the warp's endless storm nor the Emperor's golden blaze, just a dead calm. The air smelled of ash and rain, the scent of endings. Deadpool rose slowly from the ground, his armor cracked and caked in dried blood. The battlefield was gone, replaced by ruins and silence. No voices, no laughter, not even echoes. He took a step forward, boots crunching over fragments of broken statues and burnt banners. Each bore symbols of the Imperium, skulls, eagles, prayers carved into metal, all of them shattered. Soot. A city lay ahead, or what was left of one. The walls were scorched black, its cathedrals collapsed into themselves. Only one structure remained standing, a spire of pale stone, untouched by flame, its bell still hanging though long rusted in place. He walked toward it without knowing why. The relic inside him still pulsed faintly, steady and warm. It didn't hum or burn anymore. It simply existed, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to him. He didn't remember leaving the abyss, or how his body found the surface again. Time had lost shape, and space no longer obeyed rules he understood. When he reached the spire, he found the doors already open. The interior was simple, stripped bare. No saints, no altar, no gold. Only rows of empty pews, and at the far end, a small figure kneeling in prayer. The voice was faint, trembling, yet sincere. "Emperor of mankind, guide the lost and forgive the broken. Let the light find us even here." Deadpool stopped at the threshold. The figure turned. A young priest, little more than a boy, his robes patched and faded. He froze when he saw the stranger standing there, the crimson armor dull with ash, the mask cracked but intact. Who are you?" the boy stammered. Deadpool tilted his head. The answer came out softly, almost unsure. No one important, just passing through. The boy stared, eyes wide with awe and fear. "You came from the wasteland. There's nothing out there, nothing human." "I guess I didn't get the memo," Deadpool said, stepping forward. His voice carried through the empty hall like a whisper of wind. "How long's it been like this?" The priest hesitated. "It was, what, years? Decades." The crusade stopped, the fleets vanished. The Emperor's voice grew silent. "Silent," Deadpool repeated almost to himself. He looked up at the cracked ceiling, where sunlight filtered through broken stone. "Figures." The boy rose slowly. "You're wounded." "I can help. There's still water rations." He raised a hand. "Don't bother, doesn't stick." The priest frowned, confused. "You're a soldier then?" "One of his chosen." Deadpool smiled faintly. "I used to be something. Not sure what you'd call it now." He looked down at his gloved hands, the faint red glow beneath the skin still flickering. Maybe a bad dream that doesn't know when to wake up. The priest's gaze softened. "You sound tired." "Yeah," Deadpool said quietly. "I think I've been tired since before I got here." He walked past the boy, toward the ruined altar. There was nothing left of the Emperor's symbol, only a bare stone slab and traces of old wax from melted candles. He touched the surface, and the glow beneath his skin brightened, faint light spilling across the room. The boy gasped. What is that?" "I call it faith," Deadpool murmured, "or what's left of it." The warmth spread outward, gentle but steady. The cracks in the stone glowed faintly, filling with light like veins rekindling blood. The air shifted. The stale scent of dust gave way to something faintly alive, something clean. Outside, the clouds thinned, and a shaft of sunlight pierced the grey. The priest fell to his knees, eyes wide with tears. "You brought the light back." Deadpool shook his head slowly. "No, it was never gone. People just forgot how to look for it." He turned to leave, but the boy called after him. "Wait, what do I call you?" He paused, standing in the doorway. The sunlight framed him, painting his armor in a dull, red-gold sheen. For a moment he almost looked human again. "It doesn't matter," he said. "Names get in the way." The boy hesitated. "Then what should I tell them? The others when they come?" Deadpool looked out at the horizon, the ruins stretching endlessly, the wind stirring faint trails of ash that caught the light like drifting embers. "Tell them a pilgrim came through. Red armor. Bad jokes. Said he was looking for something that probably isn't there." The boy frowned. And what was he looking for? Deadpool smiled faintly. "An ending that means something." He stepped outside. The light followed him, faint but persistent. As he walked into the wasteland, the glow beneath his armor dimmed until only the faint pulse in his chest remained. The voices were silent now, but he could still feel them, watching, waiting, patient. He didn't know if the Emperor had spared him, or if the warp simply hadn't finished the joke. Maybe they were the same thing now, faith and madness, divine and damned. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. For the first time in 1,000 deaths, he wasn't fighting. He was walking. Behind him, the spire's bell gave a single, low toll. The first in years. The sound carried across the ruins, soft but steady, like a heartbeat echoing through a dead world. He didn't look back. The wind rose, carrying the sound further, spreading it across the plains like a rumor of resurrection. And as the red pilgrim vanished into the light, the laughter that once haunted him returned. Not cruel, not mocking, but gentle. The kind of laughter that belonged to someone who had finally learned to forgive. He smiled, almost laughing with it. "Guess the joke's not over yet." And he kept walking. The light of a dying sun stretched long shadows across the wasteland as Deadpool wandered, his crimson armor dull to rust by dust and time. The world beneath his boots was cracked, lifeless, yet still stubbornly clinging to form, as if it too refused to die. The relic's pulse inside him had slowed, steady but faint, like the heartbeat of a world on the edge of silence. He walked without purpose, though something familiar, inevitable, pulled him onward. He reached the edge of what once had been an ocean. Now it was a plain of glass, frozen mid-tide, reflecting a sky fractured by thin, bleeding lines of gold. In the distance, towering ruins of war machines lay half buried in ash, titans, monuments to the final madness of mankind's endless wars. They lay quiet now, colossal carcasses of faith and fury. Deadpool stopped before one, the shape of a god engine, its great cannons pointed skyward, its armor scorched black. He touched the metal. It was cold, but it thrummed faintly, like something still dreaming. The mark on his chest glowed in answer. "I guess it's just you and me, big guy," he said softly. The galaxy's worst double act. The wind howled through the broken titan, hollow and mournful. For a moment he thought he heard voices in the echoes, faint like laughter buried under centuries of dust. He turned sharply, scanning the horizon. Nothing, only the wind, only silence. Then came the first sound of war. It began as a tremor, distant thunder rolling through the bones of the world. Then light bloomed on the horizon, crimson and blue, tearing across the ruins like fire. Deadpool shielded his eyes. He knew that glow. Bolter fire, plasma arcs, the old familiar hymn of slaughter. When the storm reached him, he saw them, imperial banners torn and faded, their bearers locked in desperate combat with shadows that twisted like smoke. Chaos. The war had never ended. It had just waited for new blood. He moved before thought, old reflex. The blades were in his hands, gleaming faintly in the broken light. The closer he came, the more the world seemed to sharpen. The roar of bolters, the screams of the dying, the smell of promethium and blood. He saw them now, sisters of battle holding the line against a tide of demons spilling from a rent in the air. He waded in. The fight was chaos in every sense, blood and fire and laughter that didn't belong to the living. He cut, he bled, he burned. He burned. The demon screamed, but he kept moving, his wounds closing as quickly as they came. Around him the sisters fought like saints, their hymns of devotion lost in the storm. Then the rift widened. The sky tore open, and from it descended something vast and terrible. A prince of the warp, its form fluid, ever-changing, a monstrous parody of man and God, its many mouths whispering his name. Wade Wilson. He froze. The sound wasn't from the air, it was inside his head, deep and familiar. "You again," he muttered. "I thought I left you laughing in the dark." The prince's voice rolled across the battlefield, shaking the air itself. "You never left. You carry us within you, the joke that never ends." The ground split beneath its weight, fire and shadow spilling like blood. The sisters fell back, their faith faltering. Deadpool stepped forward, the glow beneath his skin now blinding. "Yeah," he said quietly. "That's the problem with jokes. Someone's always got to explain the punchline." He charged. The demon met him with claws of living flame, but his blades found purchase where they shouldn't have, cutting through not flesh, but the idea of it. Each strike tore fragments of light from the creature, its screams harmonizing with the laughter rising in his skull. The relic within him pulsed faster, brighter. The world began to blur, reality bending. He saw flashes of the past, the Inquisition, Halbrecht's face, the Emperor's empty throne. He saw the abyss again and all the versions of himself, still laughing, still dying, still waiting, still waiting. The demon reared back, roaring. "You cannot kill what is already part of you." Deadpool grinned, blood streaming down his chin. "Yeah, but I can still tell it to shut up." He plunged both swords into the demon's heart. The explosion was instant. Light consumed everything. White, pure, endless. The sound was laughter, his laughter, but not mocking, free. When the light faded, he stood alone again. The battlefield was gone. The sky above was calm blue, not the sterile blue of the void, but the living color of a world reborn. The demons were ash. The sisters knelt, silent, staring at him as if seeing something divine. He looked down. His armor was gone. His flesh was whole. The relic's glow was fading from his chest, sinking into his heart until nothing remained but warmth. One of the sisters approached cautiously. "Who are you?" she asked, voice trembling. He smiled faintly. "Just the guy who told the last joke." She blinked. "I don't understand, and neither do I," he admitted, glancing at the horizon. "But maybe that's the point." In the distance, the Titan stirred. Slowly, impossibly, the God engine began to rise, its systems flickering to life. Its cannons turned skyward, not in wrath, but in salute. Across the ruins the same light bloomed, machines, fortresses, even the shattered relics of old wars coming alive as if stirred by a single pulse. Deadpool watched, the wind tugging at the tattered remnants of his cloak. The air shimmered faintly, carrying the laughter again. Soft, distant, content, the sister stepped closer. What will you do now?" he thought for a moment. "A walk. Maybe find another world to fix. Maybe break a few more along the way. Doesn't matter." He looked down at his hands, flexing them slowly. "The war's over, at least for me. Guess that's enough." She bowed her head. "Then go with the Emperor's grace." He chuckled quietly. "A grace, huh? That's a new one." He turned and began to walk toward the rising sun. The light followed him, spreading across the horizon like dawn breaking for the first time. Behind him, the sisters began to sing, not in triumph, but in wonder. The sound carried through the ruins, reaching even the farthest echoes of the dying warp. And somewhere, in a place beyond gods and men, the laughter came again, soft, infinite, eternal. It rolled across the stars like the first breath after creation, a sound that was both farewell and beginning. Deadpool didn't look back. He just smiled, the sunlight catching the faint crimson of his armor. "I guess that's one way to end a war," he said. "Make 'em laugh." The wind rose, carrying his voice into the endless dawn. And then at last, the man who could not die kept walking, alone but at peace, his laughter fading into the light.